Ever wonder what the cross-section of Japanese punk Tony Hawk and Thomas the Tank Engine is? No? Well, the devs over at Undercoders cooked up something that is just that. And for as ludicrous of a concept as that sounds, the actual game underneath is something truly special. Usually when you hear about someone making a train do a kickflip, it's followed by the word tragedy. But not in Denshattack. No, Denshattack sees your on-rails basic moves and says, is that all you've got? This game is like some energy-filled fever dream I experienced with one of the best soundtracks to back it up of all time. And I loved every second of its absolutely bonkers gameplay. And despite its insane premise, I knew going in that Denshattack was a game after my own heart. But what I found was something so well put together that I couldn't help but get lost in the adrenaline pumping cool that is Bullet Train Tricky. Denshattack is an explosion of verbose colors, Tony Hawk tricks, and flair for days, embracing every aspect of Japan's culture in a fusion vibe that just feels right. Set in a future world where climate change has driven people to living in domes, a new group of train drivers set out to turn the mundane task of bullet trains into an extraordinarily dope arc called Denshattack. You play as Emmy, a new driver on the scene, rocking an old school train model and an attitude that seems to just make anyone that she meets a fan within minutes.
What? Did you see her duo still? Ooh, I love her.
The world of Denshattack is a fascinating take on a post-ecological disaster world, one where conveniently train tracks have taken up most of the real estate. Colorful yellow tracks cover miles of varying terrain, from broken down cities to shrines and even up into the mountains. There is nowhere untouched by the locomotive. The anime flair of Denshattack is on full display in these locations, with environments painted with thick lines and popping visuals that are a feast for the senses. Each level offers an onslaught of clever design and fun set pieces to experience. Emmy and her growing crew are a fun enough bunch, though the story and dialogue leans a little too campy for my taste. But before we get into the story, let's talk about why you actually came here. You came to hear about the tricks. At its core, Denshattack is a score attack game, and what that means is that you're going to be tricking your little heart out, trying to make big number go up as fast as humanly possible. Your bullet train Trictionary is impressively deep, offering everything from mid-air ground slams to full-on 720 flips. All that depth does come with a bit of a convoluted control scheme, as most of your sick moves are going to come from smacking around your right stick during your Daredevil airtime, meaning that you'll have to get into a good flow while flying between sections of track where you can wildly swing around, pulling off flips and twists no train should even be capable of. The heart-racing fast pace of the tracks meant that I had to stay on my toes constantly, chaining kickflips from track to grinding rails and even to wall riding. Mechanically deep is an understatement here. Denshattack is packed with skills and maneuvers that pile up into a speedy, high-octane flow state. Every time I thought I knew what to expect or thought I knew all the game's secrets, they'd hit me with something new and I'd have to learn and adapt to that. I also love the delivery mechanism here as a shonen style approach. Shonen anime like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto often have characters meet as foes, become friends, and after their first battle, they normally learn something along the way. Likewise, Denshattack drops you into new areas with gangs of bullet train trickers to take on that ultimately teach you how to be even more sick than before. Those skills are built up and tested on the wild levels, with weaving past and explosive sets forcing you to think quickly so you don't drop that crazy combo that you've been cultivating. Unfortunately, all that depth does have a bit of a limit, and if you aren't the kind of sicko to spend their days memorizing tracks to maximize your score, you may find Denshattack a little lacking. Now, I'm usually not a big fan of running things back on levels I've already beaten, but Denshattack's effortless cool and addicting bag of tricks had me wanting to constantly up my game. But the replayability aside, the place where this game really comes into its own is in its boss fights and its soundtrack. Outlandish showdowns against train mechs, baseball hurling locomotives, and even a shakedown with the corporate police state had me smiling from ear to ear throughout, and the spectacle was something truly to behold. Sadly, all the ambitious level design and uniquely honed boss fights couldn't save me from technical issues. They weren't prominent throughout most of my gameplay. I want to be super clear about that. Most of the game is super well put together and performs as intended, but it did become frustrating to be mid-combo and find myself suddenly clipped through a track and crashing. A few input problems also kept me from progressing in ways that really got irritating after a while. Luckily, these issues were few and far between, as I said. Denshattack more than won me back though, with a killer soundtrack that gave me Jet Set Radio vibes, and increasingly awesome customization letting me pick from new trains and paint them up with bittersweet graffiti. I love the reverence Undercoder shows the Japanese culture, not just doing stereotypic depictions, but actually offering to show more sides of what makes the country so unique. I just wish the story was anything other than mostly forgettable. Its overtly anti-corporate message is something I can get behind, but it just doesn't do enough of the legwork to make an impact. Emmy herself is likable enough, but outside of some fun references and cool character designs, I didn't really vibe with a lot of the cast.
When I'm around them, I feel electric.
Denshattack is a hyper-focused love letter to bullet trains in the Y2K era, a rebellious, spirit-raising punk rock ride that, while bumpy at times, is a full-on delight whenever it all comes together. You can feel developer Undercoders' affinity for this style of game in every frame. There is something so real about the love here, and it can be felt in the story of rebellion and in the levels taking on the oppressive forces that try to keep that punk rock spirit down. With an absolutely thumping soundtrack full of bangers, a seemingly never-ending combo of ideas, and an art style that has drip on tap, Denshattack is going to be a game that sticks with people long after the train leaves the station. I give Denshattack a 9 out of 10. For Hardwired, I'm Andrew Hamilton.